a little iffy. He was coming out of a meeting right at this time, so he might be a little late too. Otherwise, we got everyone.
Yep, we're live now.
Right now.
We're live? Okay.
We're live.
Very good. Well, we will call the first meeting of 2021 to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. A little iffy. He was coming out of a meeting. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
Now,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good. Amy, do you want to do attendance just since we're...
sure. President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Traylor,
Sure.
Counselor Burke is not present. Counselor Choi, not present. Counselor Culp,
Yes.
Counselor Melton,
Yes.
Counselor Plunkett.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Next, as is tradition and requirement, we will do the election of officers for this council for 2021, both president and vice president. Are there any nominations out there?
I would make a nomination for Josh Garrett to remain on as president. Do you want me to do a bundle?
Why don't we do them one at a time?
Yeah, one at a time.
Just to make sure. Is there any seconds for that? A second from Councilor Melton. Amy?
Second.
We'll see how I vote for this.
President Garrett,
I guess yes.
Vice President Traylor.
Yes.
Counselor Burke is not present. Counselor Choi is not present. Counselor Culp,
Okay. Yeah.
Counselor Melton,
Yes.
and Counselor Plunkett.
Yes.
Thank you.
I appreciate that ringing endorsement from Councilor Culp. Although with Councilors Burke and Choya, we should have nominated them for president and vice president. Just the meeting. What happens? Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Myself, Josh Garrett, is elected town council vice president by a vote of 5 in favor.
President.
Opposed.
Yeah, you're president, not vice president.
Oh,
Yeah.
shoot. Yes.
Yeah.
No, that is president. Okay. Let me
Right.
reiterate that. I voted for council president. I voted 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Next up, we've got vice president. Are there any nominations?
I would make a nomination for Counselor Jason Plunkett as vice president.
I'll second that.
No, I'll let Councilor Culp second that nomination. We'll see how Councilor Plunkett votes for this. Amy, do you want to go through this?
Yeah, President Garrett,
Yes.
currently Vice President Traylor,
Yes.
Counselor Burke is not present. Counselor Choi not present. Counselor Culp,
Yes.
okay. Counselor Melton,
Yes.
and Counselor Plunkett.
Yes.
Very good. Councilor Plunkett is now Vice President. Plunkett is elected as by a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. I will, in a serious note, thank now Councilor Traylor. I think you've been Vice President for the last 3.5 years and done a more than admirable job in running meetings in my absence and everything you've done for this council. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we've got requests to speak. If there are any requests to speak, I see we have one. Mr. Triscari is raised his hand. Amy, if you can promote him, please.
President Garrett, we have not
Yes.
approved the memoranda yet.
Oh, I skipped one. Gosh, I'm all over the place. Jeez, I'm so flustered, right? Still being president. I apologize, Mr. Triscari. We will get to you here in a second. We do have the approval of the memorandum of the December 21st, 2020 regular meeting, which Amy is keeping me honest here. A copy has been posted. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Second from Councilor Traylor. Amy?
President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett,
Yes.
Counselor Traylor,
Yes.
Counselor Burke, Counselor Choi, Counselor Culp,
Yes.
Counselor Melton,
Yes.
Very good. Approval of memorandum of the December 21st, 2020 regular meeting is passed by a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Now we have a request to speak. Apologies there. Mr. Triscari, is he already? Oh, there you go. He's already been promoted. Mr. Triscari, I think you know the drill, but name, address, and I'll start your time after that point.
Okay, my name is Craig Triscari, 3270 Paddock Road. As of January 2021, Van Trust has still failed to run an 8-inch water line into Saratoga after the December 2018 rezoning passing requiring Van Trust to run the line when they set up their water. We are at the 2-year plus mark from when this council approved their commitment. Van Trust has told this board they have 17 homes that have signed for water over the amount they need to implement. They told this board phase 1 was not tied to phase 2 commitment, but they have done exactly that. They have told this board that they had homes on 400 that would be used as easements to get water lines into Saratoga during the phase 1, which failed. They have committed to planting 8-foot trees, but instead planted 4 to 5 foot trees on the berms, impacting the eastern side with Whitestown, who followed suit. They continue to fail. So do you and this board and the leadership as in representing Perry Township zoning rural on this subject. It is my understanding that in October of 2020, the homeowners on 400 denied Van Trust usage of land for water variance. This goes against what the lawyer from Van Trust told this board and the planning board. They failed to secure what they promised. They have been speculative with non-existing promises being realized. This board needs to fix this issue. Van Trust is no closer to getting the water into the community than what they were 2 years ago when the town gave them the first blanket check to dump into our residencies. Today, you will be talking about preventing nepotism in this town. You should have a healthy debate on stopping crony capitalism next to the past members of this board have been granted too much leeway on their clients' violations and at the expense of the voting community. If you plan on buying a home with Zionsville's address, to be very cautious. The leadership doesn't abide by a comprehensive plan, nor do they care about your property values. Homeowners on 421 and near highways look to reduce your taxes to Zionsville based on reckless development and revitalization. The town council team has provided zero value added to the greater rural community. October of 2020, they once again failed to get the variance. Van Trust is no closer to getting this water line in. You guys need to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Triscari. A couple quick updates just for your benefit. You mentioned crony capitalism. Defined, that is a mutually advantageous relationship between business leaders and government officials outside of the benefit for the community. I'm not aware of any benefit for individual counselors in any of these projects. However, I do have some updates for you. So we got an update from Van Trust. They have received approval from Whitestown on the water extension plans. I know they were waiting on that. And they've filed since then their NOI with IDEM and expect an IDEM approval on or around January 22nd. They're also working on obtaining the needed easements for the water line. Based on the need for the meetings and other logistics, they have targeted an early February start to construction and hope to have the water line complete in April, which is still within their original commitments, and they've never wavered from those commitments. So appreciate your continued involvement here. Okay, moving. I don't see any other requests to speak. Amy, do you?
No, there are no other requests to speak.
My understanding, Amy, is in the mayor administration update, there are no updates today by the mayor or administration.
Correct.
Okay. Move on to old business. This is a consideration of an ordinance setting the town of Zionsville, Indiana fee schedule. This is still a first reading. If you remember, councilors, this was continued from the December 21st, 2020 meeting. This is ordinance 2020-21. Tammy, I've got you listed here. I don't know if there's any updates from since our last meeting, but the floor is yours should you have any.
Sure. So there are no updates since the last meeting. As noted in your council packet, I did get a response from Mayor Styron, and she does confirm that she does support the fee schedule as presented.
Good, thank you for that. Councilors, any questions, comments on any of these? And again, the introduction of this, there's still a second vote on this, so if there's any changes that we want to make, if we choose to pass this, we can still do so. Not passing this would revert to the 2020 fee schedule. I was curious about that myself, so I got that clarified here today. And
Yeah,
Amy,
I think I was
just
going
to
to
say, Alex, Councilor Choi has joined us, just so we know. Amy, sorry, Vice President. Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think just in looking over this fee structure, I mean, my 2 cents is, there's about 21 new fees for 2021 over 2020. We've got increases in some areas that are just 6%, some areas that are 50% increases for things like nature day camps. And I just think in this time of year in a pandemic setting, it just, we were really diligent on the budget process and, other areas not to increase. It just doesn't feel right to me that we would increase fees for amenities for citizens in a time like this.
I would ask that Jared join the discussion here, who is the Parks Superintendent, so that he can address any of your questions on that.
Just a second. There he is.
Hi, Jared. Jared, are you there? Well, I see you're there, but I can't see you or hear you. Going once? Going twice?
He wrote in the chat 1 moment.
Did 1 moment,
I think he's,
Okay, I see that chat. 1 moment he shall get. You're not supposed to have dead air for compelling video.
Mr.
Yes.
President,
Yeah, Craig, go ahead.
while we're waiting for Jared to join in, I just had a quick question, and maybe Heather or somebody from the police department can answer a quick question about the solicitor permits. It's a 10-day permit and a 120-day permit. And I was curious if those permits for the solicitors are for the rural and the urban district, or is it just for the districts where the police, the Zionsville Police Department serve? We have quite a few solicitors in our area, and I was just curious if these fees are for, again, the rural area and the urban, or just the served Zionsville Police Department area.
Yeah, hey, Captain Clayton here. Can you hear me?
We got you.
Yes.
I got you. Yeah, that's just going to be for the urban district there. So that'll just be the fees collected to do the backgrounds and issue the ID cards for the solicitors within the urban areas.
Thank you very much.
Captain, or for solicitation in the rural area, and maybe there is less because it's more spread out, does that go through the Boone County Sheriff's Office, or is there no fee for that?
That's correct. They go through the sheriff's office, and I can get you some details exactly how their process works. I don't have that right in front of me right now.
Good. Amy, I see Jared's got his hand up and is an attendee. I think he had some technical issues. If you could re-promote him.
Yes.
Amy, you're getting good at running these meetings. I'm impressed.
There he is.
Jared, you are promoted and currently muted, unmuted.
Good evening, Town Council.
There we go. Yay.
Sorry about that. I had to jump devices. Yes, there are some questions about the fee schedule and the change. As you can see, if you were to look at the comparison rates, we are below the standard for other districts, other parks of similar size, Carmel, Westfield, Hamilton County Parks. It's all in line with the competition. And really, we're just trying to cover some of the costs associated with the programs in order to expand our programs. Those funds are going to go directly back into the programs. They will allow the opportunity to not only invest further into expanding our program offerings, which this year we just did complete a program study, which identified exactly what Zionsville is asking for, what they're going to other communities to go for, and what we need to provide to them to fulfill those needs. So this funding revenue stream and these increases, which are often just $1 or a couple dollars per event, don't penalize the taxpayer. It's for participants that choose to participate in these programs. And that money is being reinvested into our programs so that we can expand them. And as that fund continues to grow, we will be able to offer subsidies to demographics that need that assistance to participate. For example, seniors on limited income. As we develop those programs for them, we'll be able to subsidize those programs with, let's say, an adult cooking class or something that only really benefits the individual. So there is a philosophy that is developing where we want to benefit the community, but as those benefits become smaller and smaller to teams and individuals and just limited groups, there is more of a cost recovery to fund those.
Thanks, Jared. Jason, did that answer your question or statement?
I think the my initial sentiment remains the same. I mean, regardless of, whether or not we're jumping a 50% cost for a nature daycare or a 34% cost for backyard explorers for people who live in Zionsville. I'm also concerned with, beyond the parks, why we're charging a fee for rooms in town hall, to reserve a room in town hall that businesses are paying sponsorships for, that town or that residents have had their taxpayer dollar used to support and fund. Again, I don't necessarily think I had questions so much as a statement that I don't necessarily agree with increasing fees or adding additional fees to residents without additional explanation. It seems like they were just arbitrary increases. Again, some 6%, some 25%, some 50% for services that are essentially covered in cost already. I struggle with that.
I can appreciate that, Town Council Plunkett. And the philosophy within our department is the taxpaying dollar does provide the amenity, the space, but the utilities and the staff time, those are all costs that are associated with operating our park district. So we are attempting to recover some of those costs to expand our offerings to the community. So it's a cycle rather than just increased debts.
It is, and this is a question maybe broadly for Tammy, not specifically Jared for you, because it's parks, it's fee increase beyond just parks. If taking out the new fee for the dog park, right, which that's something we can sort of talk about differently because that is something that didn't exist prior and certainly has demand from within the community. If the fees, what are the implications of these fees being accepted and what are the implications of these fees being rejected from a budget standpoint? If we reject these fees, is this going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next year? Is it going to be tens of thousands of dollars? Is it going to mean, to Jared's point, reduced programming? I don't have a sense of really arbitrarily what are the ramifications of voting for or against it are.
I can answer from just in general. The fees, as Jared was mentioning, are intended to cover costs. So in the meeting rooms, there's AV equipment that needs to be replaced from time to time. There's sanitization now due to COVID. There's overhead costs with having that space. As mentioned in the fee schedule, any of the sponsored rooms are not charged to the people that are sponsoring. So that's covered with that aspect. And as we saw during the budget process, we do need to increase our revenues in order to cover our overhead. And so these fees, as Jared mentioned, are user fees for the most part that are charged directly to those that are using it. And so therefore covering the cost as a more, one-to-one relationship.
I would argue that what we saw in the budget process was our need to reduce proposed spending to meet our revenues, not increase taxes to support.
I would agree with that, 100%.
Spending.
Right. And we did, those are the two options, and we have done hopefully some of both.
So it didn't really answer my question though. Like fees, take the dog park out, fees are what they are. If these proposed fees go in play, what's the delta between 2020 fee generation and 2021 expectation?
I think it depends on the fee, right? The meeting rooms, I don't know that they're utilized very greatly, right? So those would just be here and there, not significant. And for the parks, though, on the other hand, for their normal programming, you're talking staff, supplies, and things like that. As Jared was mentioning, those have a larger impact on the quality of services that they're offering to the community.
Okay, still haven't answered my question. There's a proposal for fees that are needed. What if we accept all these fee increases that are proposed, or we don't accept them? What's the dollar amount we're talking about? 2020 fees generated 50 grand. These fees increase will generate 60 grand. Do we know?
The increases were not wide. They were in the parks, and then the meeting rooms. There weren't a lot across all of the departments. So I'm just trying to gauge, and some of them we didn't have applications before, so we will find out this year what those costs are. I'm looking through the fee schedule right now. And
there were 6 of them. There were 6 fee increases in parks that basically averaged a 27% increase across the board on all, for all 6 of them. My point is, again, in a pandemic year where we just transferred $3 million or whatever it was from the parks to the general account, why not use some of that money, subsidize the cost, and not charge our residents more for services that they can have in town?
I'm not sure when these fees were updated last, but one of Jared's points was that it is to be competitive with the surrounding communities. And the market rate of those services are what they are.
Within the Parks Master Plan, it was identified with overwhelming majority that citizens were willing to pay more to have more provided for them. So this also complements the rationale here. With a limited budget, if you're asking us to take away from those cash reserves, we are going to have to halt some of our progress, which we've already talked about and explained in the master plan. Some of those large projects like Holiday Farms and the North and South rail trail extensions, some of those other projects would be halted or delayed because of limited funding. So rather than delay the growth and progress of our community, since we're trying to continue to expand, we have 2 other townships we want to start planning for and developing into. We're choosing to expand autonomously of that dependent tax base. So dependent on our users and how much people buy into and want to do our programs, we'll be able to expand and provide more. So it'll be a snowball effect. Whereas the actual momentum of the department, the habitat restoration, the capital improvements will not be hindered at all by the expanded programs.
Hey, Jared, Brad Burke, maybe I missed that with Josh's question. What's your projected net revenue from the proposed fees for 2021?
I'd have to do a little bit of calculating of this year's as well. These fee increases were generally to get us up with the market, as well as invest into that non-reverting operating, like I said. So as an investment, and some of these amenities are brand new, like being able to reserve shelters, as well as the dog park, which we've decided we've taken out of this, and usage for the fields at Mulberry Fields, which historically have been underutilized for one, and also the department has been burned a couple times by organizations using them and contracts not being fulfilled.
Yeah.
With previous.
I'm not so much interested in the difference between 2020 and 2021 as to, I mean, maybe we don't, I mean, I know these are projections, right? They're not factual data. I mean, you're just assuming, you know, these are the normal user data that we've had over a 3-5 year time period. If we, you know, just, if something was $50 and we're increasing it to $60 and 10 people did that, then we'd have a net, you know, we kind of have a sense of what kind of net gain you're looking to raise through these particular fees.
Correct. And COVID has been a tricky year with that as well, because we've had to slash a large majority of our programs. So are we taking the revenues estimated from 2020?
Probably 2019, yeah.
From 2019? I'll have to do a little digging and show that comparison.
Okay.
Yeah, and something I'm not real crazy about is the idea that we're going to bring our fees up to what the market allows. So, I mean, that's essentially what's being said is we're looking at all of our peers, they're charging more, therefore we can charge more, so we should. That's not a good rationale for me.
No,
so
the rationale was, as identified on the master plan, citizens are willing to pay more. So to complement
right, so you just said it right there. Citizens are willing to pay more, so we should charge them more?
No.
Because they're willing to pay it?
Let me finish that question from the master plan. Citizens are willing to pay more if we provide more. This model allows us to provide more programming without impacting any other operation within the park department. And it's not a broad tax on the entire tax user base. It is just the individuals that choose to participate.
I guess I understand that more revenue means more services, but it's hard for me to then say, when I ask the question of how much more revenue, no one seems to know. So I don't know if I'm voting in a $500 tax increase, a $50,000 tax increase, and what not doing it cuts prospectively and what doing it gains prospectively. Like, it's just kind of a blind faith, like, well, raise fees because that's what everyone else does, and we'll figure it out. And I have no doubt that you will, but it seems like a poor way to manage what is in effect a tax rate increase, even for people who are stating they are willing to pay more. There are other people that will need to use certain services that don't want to pay more, that will just be brought along as kind of cannon fodder for this. So I think that's the lines of questioning you're getting, and I'm a little disappointed with the lack of detail that's being provided with these questions. So I mean, we can go on to this for a while. Like, you know, Counselor says there's three options here, right? We could just vote this down and say no. We could, this is a first reading, so we could vote this on and then figure this out, what changes, if any, we want to make for the next meeting. Or we could just vote on a piece of it, like the dog park fee, and leave everything else alone. And I'm open to all three of those ideas. Heather, is there any other, did I miss a path, or is that kind of the three different concepts? If we move it along as is, it may give Tammy and Jared time perhaps to give us more details on the questions we're asking. Maybe if the mayor wants to come speak on this matter as well and vocalize support for this, you know, we would welcome that as well. But again, Heather, anything else I'm missing there?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess a couple options. One is, you know, the fees that exist today would stay in place. You could pull out a fee. So if you only wanted, for example, the dog park fee to move forward, you could pass it on first reading, or even, you know, in 2 votes tonight in total to implement that fee, and then just ask for the proposal to come back and start over, you know, with additional detail. Or I think the third option is you could pass it on first reading, ask for the administration to do a presentation more fully at the next public meeting. You could consider a second vote at that time, making any kind of amendments, or you could just hold it. We could amend it the way that the council chose to amend it and bring it back for a final vote at the first February meeting. So I think that's the only other option available.
And and not trying to cut off debate if there's more questions, but any preference, counselors, on
Yeah.
this?
So let me just interject real quickly, and I'm pulling over so that I can talk with and not drive at the same time. I apologize about this. So I don't see this, and I'm jumping into the middle of the conversation, I realize this, but I don't see this as a taxation, but what Jared's referring to, that it is a user fee. So it with any kind of revenue from or expenses from user fees that's intended to cover, they're the fixed and variable costs of it. And I think that's what we're trying to talk about, is we don't quite understand what those costs are that we're trying to cover and generate revenue for to create the programs. But having said that, I feel that we are okay. This is my personal opinion, that I'm okay with the fees that are being proposed to move forward, so that we can have further discussion around it. So I'm okay with passing on first reading. And I just wanted to state my opinion around that there are some question marks, but I don't know that these aren't things that we can, that these are things that we can discuss and overcome between now and the second reading.
Voice of reason, Councilor Choi. Is that Councilor Choi? Is that an official? You want to make an official motion to that effect?
Yeah. So I will. Sure. I'll go ahead and make an official motion to pass on first reading.
First from Councilor Choi. Any seconds on that? I like that approach too, quite honestly. So
Yeah, I would second that.
I think I just beat you, Joe.
No, sorry.
Brian, were you going to say anything, or just same thing?
I was going to second it, but also I agree that when we come back for our next meeting, we should have a real presentation about this. It's so far it hasn't been really presented. So
I agree. Okay, Amy, I think we've got all 7 of us here now. Councilor Choi, do you want to do a roll call vote on the motion to move along in first reading?
Sure. And you were the second, right?
I was, yes.
Okay.
I just beat out Joe and Brian.
Okay. President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett,
Yes.
Councilor Trailer,
yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Choi,
Yes.
Councilor Culp,
Yes.
and Councilor Melton.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance number 2020-21 is introduced with a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. Tammy, if you think there's a little bit of homework to do here, if you have any questions, we can talk offline. And if it's not you that's responsible, we can figure out who is. I just think there's some questions to be answered here. And one other quick follow-up, because Captain Clayton is... Oh, just let me do one other quick update, Jason, and then it's all yours. Captain Clayton just sent a quick note just saying rural solicitors are not required to get a permit from the sheriff's office, and therefore there is no fee. So just to let everyone know, that was an answer to a question that Councilor Melton had earlier. Jason, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, just in the presentation or the next time we hear this, if we could get some clarification from Jared on you made the comment that the cash reserves were being limited. When we moved that cash to the general account, it was earmarked specifically for parks projects. It's worrisome to hear that. It's worrisome to believe that, or to hear that they're being limited in that regard. So I just want to get some clarification on that.
No, I don't believe that's what I said. I meant that they were a limited amount, as in it was the cash we earmarked is a limited amount. It's a finite amount. And once that reserve is gone, there won't be money set aside specifically for parks. So then we would enter into the larger town conversation about where funds are going. Whereas those earmarked parks funds are for parks projects. So once that set aside funds are gone, then we will be at the discretion of town council and the community as the wants and needs of their projects in competition with the other departments, like the fire department or the police department, if that makes sense.
Well, good news, Jared, is I think you have a council here that is certainly parks friendly. We realize the value of parks to our community, and also
Absolutely.
certainly there is, I know the Parks Board has bonding capacity as well, if that's something necessary for projects. So point noted though, and certainly look forward to working with you here in the near future.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. That was it for old business. For new business, we've got a consideration for appointments to various boards, commissions, and committees. This was something that we have to do just about every year. Amy and I sort of spearheaded this project, mostly Amy. I just said, will you spearhead this project? And we really sort of looked at two folks that couldn't serve or were no longer interested in serving, and then backfilling those individuals through various recommendations that came from counselors. There are still some to come from the Pathway Committee is one, and then there's also the Union Township Building Corporation, and there's also the Mayor's Grant Review Committee. So there's still a few more to get figured out, and then the holiday break kind of got in the way of that. So councilors, I think we'll be voting again on this next meeting, not on these same people, but also on just these new ones. If there are any other individuals that have not applied, please encourage them to do so. Amy's keeping track of that. Excuse me. In addition to that, there's something else I was going to say on this piece, but it's lost. Oh, I know what it was. Councilor Choi had asked for anyone that was up for reappointment to write a short paragraph on why they wanted to do that, and those were provided. And so if you have more detail on who is, in most cases, volunteering for these various boards and committees for us, and in some cases, it's the town councilors as well. So I appreciate each of you stepping up to do this. Sorry for that long intro. Any questions on any of this? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the committee list as was submitted to us.
Second.
And a second from Councilor Trailer. Getting used to that. Amy?
Okay, President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett,
Yes.
and Councilor Trailer,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Choi,
Yes.
Councilor Culp,
Yes.
and Councilor Melton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Appointments are approved with a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed, and certainly heartfelt thanks to those that agreed to do this. Next is not a vote necessary, but it is the annual certification of compliance with conflict of interest and nepotism policies. Amy, do you want to talk through this, or do we need to schedule time to come in and sign anything?
Sure. This is just something we do every year. It's in order to comply with state regulations as well as the Town of Zionsville Ordinance regarding conflict of interest and nepotism. That would be Ordinance 2012-10, and that was in your packet with the forms. Everyone will need to complete the compliance with the town's nepotism policy involving direct line supervision, and the compliance with the contracting with the town by a relative policy. Those are just standard forms you'll need to complete. The other form is the Uniform Conflict of Interest Disclosure Statement. That would only need to be completed if there is a conflict of interest with any of you involving any financial interests connected with any contracts or purchases of the Town of Zionsville. The compliance forms, we normally get those filled out and turned in at the beginning of the year, but they have to be done by the end of the year. The Uniform Conflict of Interest Disclosure form must be completed as soon as you're aware of any conflict of interest. So that could happen, even if you don't have it now, if it happens later this year, you'd still need to complete that and get that into me, and then we have to file it with the state and the county. So that's basically what it is.
Very good. Heather, really quick, our speaker today mentioned something about a project that was completed and some accusation of tie-in to the town council in this project. There is none that I'm aware of. But that's not necessarily covered by this. That would be covered, I assume, individually on a project if there was a vote and someone had a financial interest there.
Yes.
Rarely comes up. I just want to make sure we aren't confusing the two. One is for business with the town, and the other would be a recusing if there was a financial gain on a specific project that was being proposed.
Yeah, for example, if you owned a parcel of land or you were an investor in a real estate group that was developing a piece of land that was applying for an incentive before the town, you would need to disclose that and recuse yourself from any action related to your financial interest. And then if you're doing business with the town, let's say, for example, your wife's company is selling copy machines and they currently have the copy machine contract, if they're not a Xerox, but they're a local mom and pop shop in Zionsville, she may, receive some financial interest, and that would be when you would need to disclose financial interest for doing business with the town.
Got it. My wife's company just sells VCRs and business is very slow, but I don't think anything we got to worry about. Councilors, any questions on any of this? We had to do this last year as well. And so Amy, me sign when we come in to sign the papers from today's meeting?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, great. Normally we have approval of claims, but claims were a little delayed this time. I know there's been some frustration and we put together sort of a more formal process. One of the things I know that we are working with Tammy on, who's been open to this, is the current process, and it is what it was. The claims were being processed the same week that the packet was being put together. So everything was due on Monday, approved on Tuesday, sent on Wednesday. Well, claims was happening that same week and wasn't getting done till Thursday, then sent out Friday. And I know we want to make sure we all have enough time to review everything. So what I think is going to happen is that it will be done on an off week so that can go through that whole process. And then the following week it will already have been done from a financial standpoint, administration standpoint, and can just be put in the packet non-changed. So hopefully we'll hear more about that in the next meeting that we've got coming up. Anyone have any other matters they'd like to discuss? All right, then I will make a motion to adjourn. Second from Councilor Burke. Amy?
President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett,
Yes.
Councilor Trailer,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Choi.
Yes, and I would like to thank everybody for not voting me into a position while I was not at the meeting.
He almost did. Councilor Culp
Yes.
and Councilor Melton.
Yes.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Motion to adjourn is approved by a vote of 7 in favor, 0 opposed. The next regular town council meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, January 19th, 2021 at 7:30 a.m. Please note that date has shifted due to the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday on Monday, January 18th. A determination of need for a solely electronic meeting will be evaluated prior to the meeting, although I expect it to be electronic. And final notice will be posted in compliance with Indiana open door law. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Hold on. Hey, John, do you need me for anything else?